All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Suited Kings podcast. Today's guest really does not need an introduction, but here we are. I have Mr. Chance Kornuth on the line. He has 4 WSOP bracelets, over 20 million in earnings, a WP title, and the list goes on and on. Chance, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's nice to have you as well. And Wes, how are you doing today? Can't forget about your beautiful face, sir.
I'm doing great, but I'm always here, so it's not quite as special. Yeah, Chance, thanks for coming on today. I'm actually going to start off by reading off one of your tweets from this summer.
Oh
You
boy.
tend to tweet out a lot of quotes, and I thought this was a good one to start on. Your poker decisions reveal whether you're playing to profit or to feel cool. And the question I have is, one, how can you tell which one someone else is playing for? But also, how could our listeners maybe identify some spots where they're kind of playing to feel cool?
I could maybe speak more to experience than for everyone in general. Like I have this leak where if I'm facing like a river shove and I think to myself, man, this would be such a good call, or this would be such a cool call. I'm wrong 100% of the time, or like 95% of the time. And so I've kind of like made that realization that, if you're thinking of it from the wrong mindset and not thinking of it from like, okay, what are my odds? What's their bluffing range, etc., then you're probably going to make a lot of mistakes. And so that's kind of where that one came from.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's a great, easy way to look at it too. Because I definitely find myself in that spot, saying that to myself. This would be a cool spot to call. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah, this would be such a great call, and then you're just like,
and then you call, and you're
Yeah.
like, "This is not a great spot to
this is
call."
not a good call. Yeah.
That's interesting because I can relate to that a bit, but I also feel like sometimes that's me at first. Like I can think of some spots where I'm like, oh, should I bluff raise here? And then I have this moment of, hang on, I could be good. Like I could call. Like this would be, is there a way you differentiate between that excitement of like this would be cool versus excitement of, oh wait, I didn't even think of this, but this could be the right play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when you're thinking of like when you're using the emotional side of your brain, like thinking this could
Mhm.
be cool, as opposed to what's logical.
Yeah.
And it's really easy when we're playing poker for our emotions to jump into our decision making process, but that's like very impulsive as opposed to like the logical, methodical process.
So I guess to go off of that, is there ever a time to listen to your emotions? Like what role does emotional intelligence play in becoming a good poker player?
Maybe being aware of your emotions and
Mhm.
realizing that you shouldn't listen to them. Like if you've studied poker and you have a logical foundation to fall back on, then you really shouldn't be listening to your emotions at all.
I feel like I'm probably more of the emotional player compared to you. Wes is definitely more of the brains, and I hate to say this.
I feel like Wes is going to clip that part and it's
Yeah.
just going to say
Yeah.
Wes is the brains.
Yeah, that will literally be our intro video
Oh, here
for
we
the
go.
podcast.
I hate admitting it, but you know what? As a good friend as well, I got to give him, credit where it's due. So definitely on
Well,
that.
thank you. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Now, what Chance, you play a lot of high rollers. You play a lot of non-high rollers. For example, I see you entered the Millionaire Maker. Was it the Millionaire Maker you cashed in, I believe, this
Yeah.
year? What kind of differences are, what kind of strategy changes do you make from playing in a high roller to playing in one of those smaller buy-ins? And I'm assuming it'll go along the line of playing more GTO compared to exploitative, or am I completely wrong there?
No, I mean, I think that's spot on where like in the high rollers, there are some exploits. Like there's regs that lean tight or loose, and you're going to be making these very subtle adjustments to three bet more or less, or to fold more and call more, etc. And then the fish in those tournaments, you still are going to exploit. But when you have a very recreational heavy field like the Millionaire Maker, it's just almost pure exploit where you start with like a baseline strategy and then it's like, okay, your table's not three betting enough, so you realize your equity way more than you should, so you just get to open significantly more.
Does
Or every single pot goes four ways, so certain hand classes go way down in value and you want to play something that's a lot, has a lot more nut potential.
do you enjoy one more than the other? Money aside, finances aside.
Yeah, I enjoy like playing against recreational players significantly more.
Okay.
Because for me, like the fun in poker comes from those exploits, comes from the ability to like think about it's like, wow, how can I really own this person? And in reality, in the high rollers, you're never really owning someone. It's like, okay, someone shoved and you make this like big call, but it's like you just ran into the bottom of their range. Or you make a big bluff in a high roller and it's like, okay, you just ran into the bottom of their range. Like it doesn't feel as good for me. But when you get way outside of the box and you exploit these like recreational players, like the hand that will actually go over, uh, it's just way more fun than anything, I think.
What is most fun for you to get into now? Or maybe more
I
most
really like
profitable?
the main event type stuff, like
Yeah.
WPT main events and the Borgata's having like a 5K 3 mil or something like that. Those are always have been my favorite.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, you traditionally have done very well in those big, massive fields too that are rec heavy. You know, you mentioned the main event, and Wes and I were talking about there was a hand you played from this year's main event where you had pocket eights. I actually didn't get to see the hand myself. No, no.
Oh,
So I'm not familiar with the hand history, regardless of how good you are, and I don't even know if you made a mistake during this hand, but
I did.
anyone, even if you're at the best of the game, you're going to make mistakes. So just to put
Yeah.
that out there. Anyways, what happened on that hand? And Wes, do you have the hand history, or maybe Chance could provide that hand history?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I watched. It was basically the guy 3-bet you. You called with eights. The board ran out like it was either like 9-6-3, 9-10, something of that sort.
Close. 9-9-3-6-10.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It must not be fun being under the spotlight all the time either.
I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, I would say in small doses, I actually really enjoy it. You
Okay.
know, like walking around once in a blue moon, you get recognized and asked for a picture. Like, I really enjoy it. But
Okay.
there's been times where it's been like constant and it's not enjoyable at all.
Well, right, and you get people, cherry picking or nitpicking at every little, you're just under such a telescope where you kind of, and then you might have to feel the need to defend yourself on how you did something.
I mean, I could see how that inclination to defend yourself might hop in there from time to time, but like most of the people that are trolling you, it's like, who really gives a shit?
Not even worth the energy. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, you have a ton of results to back how you play the game, anyways. But can we talk about that hand for a second and just kind of maybe your thoughts on it, whether you thought it was good or bad, or just in general, what your thoughts were?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really bad.
Okay.
Even on the flop when I faced so I open EP, get 3-bet early position, get 3-bet by the button, and I call with eights, standard so far. Comes 9-9-3. And my intention on the flop was to just call one and fold to turn because he had, I didn't know how tight he was actually, but I just knew that he was somewhat tight. Um, and my plan was just to call a C-bet, which is very standard here with
Yep.
the thought process that all of his air would shut down because I have 9x and pocket pairs in my range. So like one of the biggest questions you have to ask yourself is what does my hand look like? Would my opponent try to bluff? And when that's my range is like, we'll just say eights plus and 9x, like he's not going to try to bluff. Like it's quite simple. And so that was my plan on the flop, called flop. And then for some reason, I just continued calling down on turn and river.
I think it's easy sometimes, and Wes and I were chatting about this actually just a little bit ago, but do you find that you sometimes go on autopilot, whereas you're not as zoned into the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, but that wasn't necessarily the reason for the mistake in this one. Like this one, it was just like I knew told myself he wasn't bluffing, and then impulsively like thought of a excuse to call.
Okay.
Same thing happened on the river.
Yeah.
And so like I think it's kind of the opposite of autopilot. Like autopilot there is exactly what I said. You check all flop, you check
Fold turn.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It was like more of an overthinking situation where, like, because I'll admit when I watched it, I was like, he jammed the river really quickly, and I'm like, man, I would at least, because I would expect you to fold like eights, so it's almost like what are you getting called by with king? So like I actually could see myself once you call the turn, like folding the river or calling the river again once he jams pretty quickly. But
yeah, and maybe that was one of the things that I impulsively focused on in the moment,
I was gonna ask, so what for players? So Max and I and a lot of our listeners play in terms of tournaments, it's like 500s, 1100, kind of the low mid stake stuff, which, as you said, is like pure exploit pretty much. But what role does studying a GTO style have in playing exploitatively? Excuse me.
I would say just knowing, like not necessarily studying GTO, but just studying in general. Knowing your equity versus hands, knowing how often a bluff has to work or how often floating has to work to be profitable, and just those little things like that. Or knowing that when someone see bets a queen four deuce board and you have king jack or something like that that unblocks the ace x that's going to check fold the turn and blocks the top pairs, the king queens, the queen jacks, and stuff like that, really allows you to exploit more and more and more. And so having an understanding for the game is what helps you exploit.
Going back to, how I mentioned, how Wes changed the game for me. Is this when you and Alex became friends, Alex Fox, and how do you feel like he improved your game and maybe vice versa to that?
I would say at first it was me improving his game.
Okay.
I kind of found him and I was like, hey, I have one more spot for this coaching for profit. And honestly, like when I met him, it was I was looking for one more person, and he like cold four bet 3 times in 2 orbits and just had so much heart, and went and chatted on break. And I was like, this kid, he's got it. And even though he got 5 bet shoved on or lost all 3 of the pots, but I was like, this kid's got heart, he's like just fearless. And so early on in our relationship, like he was a little bit too bound by the GTO. So just letting him know that like, yo, you can do whatever the hell you want. Like you can bet a little more if you're trying to get him to fold or vice versa. And like just really kind of freeing him from the constraints of GTO. And then nowadays, I would say that the equation has maybe flipped around. If I have a question about like, hey, what's solver say about this spot, or like, what's your thoughts on a situation that I'm curious about, I ask him. And so it's not necessarily, and I do think we continue to help each other. But in today's day and age, it's definitely the student has become the master.
Do you have like first thing that comes to your head of a hand where you maybe owned Alex?
The most memorable one is we were both down to maybe 3 tables in WPT Choctaw, and Chrissy was still in 2. I don't know if they were married or not yet. And we just got in this massive like 43 big blind each flip in a spot where everyone at our table, the whole field, other than a few players, was just so soft and passive and tight. And for us to get all in was with tens against ace queen was just a massive mistake on both of our parts. For me to have the plan to 3-bet call it, for him to 4-bet shove, and just winning that flip and going on to
you
win
went to win this one.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty fun.
Do you feel like you guys' relationship up to that point led up to that hand? Like, say you guys were complete strangers to each other, probably wouldn't have played the same, or were you guys strangers at that point, kind of?
Oh no, we were pretty close for
You
sure
were.
already. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I just something about battling with Wes just really brings out the fire in me. I love it. So.
Yeah, I mean, we still love to battle, I would say. But that one's certainly the most memorable.
I love it. I love
Like
it.
the
Yeah.
better you know someone, the more you kind of go after them because you know where they're too wide or too tight, or like it's just
Any hand where it's like a marginal like 4-bet or fold spot, Wes will take the 4-bet 100% against me.
I don't even.
for
I
the
actually think
longest
it's bad strategy too. Like, because I know you're not folding.
Because I'm not folding, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
And
for the
somehow you
longest
still
time,
win.
Foxen
It's
would
good.
just check raise me like every opportunity that he got.
They're just full of shit, dude. I love poker so much, and being able to play with my best friends is just incredible. As long as we don't typically take it to any sort of like crazy financial, But I know you guys were final 3 tables at Choctaw with what, $500,000 up top.
Yeah.
By the way, if you guys can't see the video, he's got the massive WPT trophy right behind his left shoulder. That thing is beautiful. What was it like joining the WPT Champions Club? Was that a special moment for you? Was this prior to your first WSOP bracelet? No, you actually won your WSOP bracelet in 2010. So you're already
So this was 3 or 4 years ago when this happened. So this was way after.
way after. Okay. And which is more prestigious to you?
WPT, not even close.
I'd assume specifically because of the amount of champions there are and abilities there are to win one. Or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
exactly. I mean, like every single WPT where you have a chance is at least what 1,000 to 2,000 people minimum, and then there's WSOP events where you can win one with 50 people in it, and there's
Mhm.
what 300 opportunities a year now if you got like count all the online ones.
It has
Yeah.
diluted.
About 100, well 99 because they scummed the Millionaire Maker this year.
Ah,
Mhm.
But
yes.
yeah, I mean, it's just I feel like it's so much harder.
I agree with that. And shout out, I mean, they did kind of scum them. Also, shout out to our boy Josh Reichard who got third in that event. Are you familiar with Josh Reichard?
Yeah, he's an animal.
He is an
He's a
animal.
Yeah.
great player.
He's a good friend of
He,
ours. We've had him on the podcast as well. He is, if you want to talk about having heart, Josh Reichard has heart. Like that dude is not afraid to just
oh
Yeah,
fight.
he's
yeah,
unafraid.
he terrorizes the Midwest poker scene
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Terrorizing is a great adjective for that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like watching him, I added additional exploits to my game. Like that's one of the things that I've always found interesting about people who are too rigid is they look at someone and they're like, "Oh, that guy's terrible." So let's just take like here's a good infamous player in poker, like a Maurice Hawkins or someone like that,
Mhm.
where a lot of people be like, "Oh, he's terrible," and I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like the guy gets it done, and it's like, yeah, he doesn't get it done like you do, but like he's clearly doing something right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so instead of criticizing someone that you don't think, skins the cat the same way you do, maybe you should see how they do it and add those elements to your game.
Skins the cat. That's a first. I've never heard that way. I like
Well,
it.
they
Yeah.
like there's two ways to skin a cat, right? Or isn't that the phrase?
I'm not familiar with the phrase, so
Yeah, more than one way to skin a cat.
okay.
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah.
skinned a cat, but
No, I mean no shit, neither have I, but I'm pretty sure that's like a well-known saying.
oh, I love it. Let's talk about the tougher side of poker for a second here, Chance. Yeah, obviously you've had incredible results, especially after COVID in at the WSOP. You just six-figure score after six-figure score. It seemed like, especially in 23 and 24, coming into 2025. You openly admitted that it's been one of your toughest summers.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, but not only just about we don't want to just hear about bad beats, but like how you deal with it mentally and how you can recover from that.
Well, yeah, it's actually something that I've worked hard on lately is reflection and seeing like where I'm making mistakes and thinking of it as an opportunity to build my resilience instead of like having the woe is me mentality. It's like, all right, whatever doesn't kill me
Mhm.
makes me stronger, like no big deal. And that's kind of my perspective. And like I think in order to like play our best, we need to practice some type of regular reflection on like, okay, which hands did I think maybe I could have sized differently or taken a different line that I think might have been a mistake. And on days where you're losing and taking bad beats or strings of those days, it's a lot harder to reflect. Like you reflect on the day and like you just remember the all ins that you lost as opposed to um, the days where you won all ins. It's a lot easier to find those little mistakes that you may have made. And so, yeah, resilience is one of the biggest things I've been trying to take away from it.
Do you take breaks or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think breaks are really important. I always use the analogy of like thin skin, where like if you flick yourself on the wrist, it like doesn't really hurt, but if you do it for like 50 times, it really starts to hurt.
Mm,
And so, like, I think of losing kind of the same way, where like if you lose day after day after day, it takes a toll. And
Yeah.
so breaks and whether it's working out and recharging your batteries and like doing different things, I think it's imperative to playing your best. I know that not everyone feels that way. Some people try to like play through it, but it doesn't really work for me.
Wes and I have talked about this a lot. I don't know if Wes handles it better, but I take longer breaks than he does for sure.
And also I am I play poker full time for my income, whereas Max has like a bunch of things. So it's it is just like
That
a
is
little
true.
bit different in that
Wes is a
sense
poker
too.
professional, whereas I'm a realtor by profession. I play
Got it.
poker for the love of it.
Well,
Sh-
I was gonna say like sometimes when you're losing, you have a bunch of losing days. Like if you take a few days off and it's like, oh, I had 3 days where I made more money in poker in those 3 days than so many of the previous days. Like that in itself can feel kind of good. Like the bleeding stops, to use sort of the physical pain
Yeah.
reference.
Yeah, and well, Wes, we've talked a lot about downswings, and obviously anyone who plays poker as much as all three of us have is going to experience downswings. And what was that Phil Gelfand quote that you always brought up to me? That kind of
I think it's this one. It's at some point in poker you'll run worse than you ever thought was possible.
And so, like, with having that expectation and then finally running into those moments, I think it can be graceful to kind of remind yourself that it'll happen to even the best players. I think the reason why I wanted to bring this up, Chance, was just because a lot of our listeners right now and in the future will run into downswings. So, hearing from people who are as, tenured as yourself to that they go through it and what helps them get through it will be beneficial to them as well.
That actually brings me to another, I think one of your Twitter quotes, but I don't have it the exact quote, but you said something like, the difference between winning and losing players is, winning players don't blame variance when they're on a downswing, something of that nature. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the really funny things that you'll like see from the trolls is people are like, oh, like what's the best way to phrase it? Or like one of the standout examples is when people think like the winners have just like ran good in their careers. Like the difference between you and me is you just ran good in your career, and it's like, that's probably not true.
Yeah, that might be true of like a Jamie Gold or something. But
yeah, absolutely. But like in reality, the things that Jamie Gold did to people in that tournament was like utterly insane. Like he talked people into folding or calling whenever that was his desire. And if you can get your opponent to make the decision you want them to do on rivers when the spots are the biggest, you're going to destroy people. And yes, of course he ran well. I'm not trying to take away from that. But people aren't accounting for how incredible of a job he did at accomplishing that.
He 100% did. I agree. Like
they changed the rules of the game. That's how bad he fucked people.
It was so fun to watch too. Like honestly,
Yeah,
it was so fun to watch. Let's kind of hang on that for a minute. You're obviously a big live tells person. Can you talk a bit about I mean, I don't know, without getting too deep and giving away too many of your secrets, without, guys, go buy chip leader coaching, okay? But no, tell us about what you're looking for at the table, specifically against recreationals, in terms of live tells. What are just a couple of ones that come to mind, and how do you target those?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the biggest thing you can do is pay attention. Watch the pieces of people's bodies that move. Don't waste your energy on people who are actively concealing, because then you're going to expend too much of your mental RAM trying to get a tell when you might not be able to, or maybe it's not there. There's going to be other players that you should focus on the table, whether it's because the player's on your right, because the player's a wreck with a lot of chips, like those types of situations. And yeah, I mean, just try to focus on what changes. If they did something when they're strong and now it looks different, are they doing that intentionally, or are they weak now?
Okay.
Okay.
Wes,
it's not the topic I like to get into too much on podcasts.
No, that's completely
that makes sense. I was gonna ask a follow-up to that. I guess without getting too specific, do you ever like get reads off of people without anything regarding their poker play, just off of comments they make about life?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, but not necessarily as much about life, but if you're actually listening and being present and paying attention at the table, the amount people talk about they give away what their thought process is by saying like, oh, like I would have never called there, or like clearly he has a nine or aces, just like these random types of comments where they give away their thought process. And like, it's really important to remember, like, we perceive what we do. So like, have you ever had someone like be surprised that you would loan them money or something like that? That's because they wouldn't loan someone money because they're not trustworthy.
Sure. Yeah. I don't loan people money.
Yeah,
so no, but
I guess a much better example would be like the psychopaths or the super aggressive players always think they're getting bluffed because they're always bluffing. The nits
That's a great
always
one,
give credit and make big folds because they always have it.
Yep.
And so like we perceive what we do mentality, when people are talking about their perceptions at the table, they're actually giving away a lot of information as to how they play.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Anything else on that topic, Max? I have a couple more questions here.
No, go ahead and get into your questions and let's break down a hand.
Yeah. So one question I had is just coaching in general. What would you say your philosophy is on coaching? And also, chip leader coaching, I've been a subscriber, or, I've been a part of it for maybe a year now. It's a much different type of coaching site, I think, than some of the other ones. So yeah, just talk about your philosophy in general.
Yeah, like one of the biggest problems with the coaching landscape today, and like the vast majority of the product offerings out there, whether it's GTO Wizard or GTO Lab, all of the
Mhm.
different solver tools that you're able to subscribe to, is that they just tell you an output. It's like, oh, you should have done X. You should have done this 20% of the time and this 80% of the time. And it doesn't tell you
Mhm.
why. And so like unless you get that exact board texture or something extremely similar, um, even if you have that memorized perfectly, it's going to be very difficult for you to extrapolate how to do it on a different board texture or why you're doing it. And
Mhm.
so even with our cheapest offering, which is Chip Leader AI, which is I believe is the one you're referring to,
Yep.
we have over 4,000 hands in there where it kind of acts like a solver, where it takes you through the action of the hand and then says like, what's the optimal decision with multiple choice. And then instead of it just telling you what the right answer is after you select yours, like myself or Foxon recorded a video or wrote an explanation that actually says, well, we would do this because of this. And
Yeah.
it helps people learn to think about the game correctly. And I think there's a significant difference between learning how to think like a solver and then extrapolate that information out and really exploit your opponents, and just memorizing solver outputs. Like that's the biggest issue with the training landscape.
I like that. So, we always say, when you're using a solver, it's not to just follow what the output is, but to ask yourself why it's giving that output. But you guys kind of detail the why in your coaching.
Yeah, it's like, well, why is it choosing a really small sizing with ace queen on king seven deuce? And it's like, okay, well, with ace queen, it wants to get called by worse ace highs. Like with your 4-5 suited, it just wants to target the auto folds. And then it has some big sizing with these other pieces, like that want more value from the strong parts, and the big sizing with the weaker hands that wants to force out like the queen jacks and stuff like that. And so, like, once you understand why it's doing what it's doing, why it's choosing those sizes, you can get in a situation on a different board texture and choose a good size. And that's like one of the biggest things that the solver does help with. But like once you actually play a lot of poker, you realize that a lot of your opponents don't know how many chips are in the middle to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Very
And
true.
so if you're like, I'm going to bet 3/4 pot, because that's how I'm balancing my range, it's like, well, he doesn't know what 3/4 pot is. Why the hell are you
Yeah.
choosing 3/4 pot when you can be top pair?
I
Or
like
like
it.
sometimes in order to get someone to fold, you just have to rip on them because they value their tournament life. And
Yep.
so being able to make these decisions where you're value betting really big or bluffing really big for the right reasons is so much more important than memorizing what a stupid computer does when it's trying to break even against itself. And that's what most people don't really realize about solvers, is it's literally two computers trying to figure out a strategy where they break even against itself. And people are like, this is optimal. How could that ever be optimal when you're playing against a human developing a strategy that breaks even against itself?
Mm-hmm.
Like in reality, it's like I want to bluff a lot where they're folding too much, and I want to value bet a lot when they're calling too much.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
simplifying it, definitely. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and obviously I'm oversimplifying it, like trying to explain it to people who maybe haven't played 100,000 hours of poker like I have. But
We have a
that's
lot
the
of,
best.
newer, our audience ranges from, newer people who are new to poker to all the way to experience. So I think that this kind of fits in layman terms for everybody. So
Yeah. Well, and I think what's cool is like when you use the AI tools, like not only does it explain the decision, but it will give you context of like we're up against a loose passive player, or some sort of context like that. And
Yeah.
so it can help you put yourself in that sort of framework. And then yeah, like the example where you gave the king seven deuce board. Now let's say we have an opponent who when they have an auto fold, they just like they don't fold versus small C bets because they're insulted and they just raise you all the time. So it's like then maybe you don't maybe then you're not C betting the ace high as much because or maybe you're not bluffing as much, but you're like taking that into account with your value where
Well,
you're
yeah,
gonna
that
be
you like it's like you're playing against a Brazilian player online.
yeah.
You just want to see bet bigger with your air and small with your value because they check raise bluff frequency against small is too high.
It's so
Yeah.
high.
And so that's like what I like to call like the rock paper scissors element of the game, where it's like every single thing has an adjustment, right? So in reality, humans aren't balanced. And so when you're at a table, especially a WPT main event, an MSPT main event, the main event, when you have this huge myriad of different individuals, it's really about figuring out the best game plan. And to oversimplify again, if this guy's going to throw scissors way too many times, well, what's the poker version of rock for that? So if this guy C bets 100% of the time he opens, how do we want to take advantage of that? Well, I want to, and then they always shut down on the air on their turn. Well, I would stop raising the flop with my hands that can beat top pair because they're going to continue betting on the turn when they have a strong hand anyway. I would call in position significantly more often and then just bet when they check when I have the bottom of my range. I might check back some top pairs on the turn as opposed to always betting them like I would against other players, So like there's all these adjustments. And that's the beauty of poker is when you generalize what your opponent does and say, okay, the two seat does this too much. What is my response to that? That's where the game is fun for me. And that's why I enjoy not high rollers. Like in high rollers, it's so much more subtle, like we had mentioned before. I'm going to three bet this hand pure instead of 50% or 60%.
Yeah,
Like that's
he's one pip too wide.
yeah,
Like
like that's cool, but it's not nearly as fun as just utterly destroying these people. And like when you have people who are really unbalanced, you're able to take so much advantage of them. And back to the solver concept is the solver is always perfectly balanced in every spot. Where if y'all have played MSPT or
yeah,
WPT,
a lot
no
of
one that you play with is perfectly balanced in every spot. And so that's where the fun in poker is taking advantage of the imbalances.
mhm.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
So let's throw out a hypothetical here. You've played a few orbit. You're early on in an MSPT, and you've seen a player open limp multiple times, and then you see them open to like 6 big blinds.
This is very common.
Right. As a basic example, like what are the alarm bells telling you there?
Um, well, they obviously have folds too. So if you look at like seven deuce off and pocket aces, most of the time these opponents are going to fold this bottom portion,
Mhm.
call the weak, like call the medium portion and raise the top. And oftentimes, even more entertainingly or kind of funny, the bigger the opening size kind of tells how strong their hand is. So they might
Mhm.
raise like 3x or 2.5x with the ace jack suited, but then they raise the 6x with aces and jacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so bet size relative to strength. It's like, well, the adjustment to that is when they're opening big with their strength, I'm just going to fold a lot more. When they're opening this smaller medium size, I'm going to three bet bluff a lot more, three bet a little bit more linearly for value. And then when they limp, I'm going to isolate way wider because they're either going to limp fold or limp call and then check fold.
Mhm.
It's a simple strategy, true.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah, it's not hard. Let me ask you though, like say you're super deep against an opponent where you know that they're opening, say we're 100 bigs deep. All right, it's early in a tournament. You know that they're raising 6x where they're in the top echelon of the range. You have somewhere in the middle. Are you going to, because you're deep enough, call with hoping to make two pair better because of the implied odds or the
Yeah,
implied value?
you have to think about which piece you're doing it with, right? So like a hand like ace 10-0 is going to play very, very poorly against the big sizing range. But hands that are polar, which means they're going to flop a lot of equity or no equity, pocket fours, 4 or 5 suited, Pocket fours, you know where you're at, right? They're either
Oh,
going to see bet tiny or check when they have ace king, and you can just call or fold the turn if they bet again, or they're going to bet huge and you're comfortable folding, or you're going to flop a set and try to get stacks in. So it becomes pretty simple because players that do implement that pre-flop strategy, they're displaying a player tendency. And more often than not, player tendencies continue from one street to the next. And so if those people are showing what I would call bet size relative to the strength of their hand, well, that's often going to follow through post flop as well. So maybe they think they're supposed to always see bet, so they see bet a small sizing. So I'm going to have more bluff raises versus that smaller sizing. But when they see bet a large sizing, I'm just never going to fuck around.
I really like what you said about their tendencies seem to stay the same throughout the later streets in the hand. And I think a lot of people, including myself occasionally, will level myself later in hands because of that. So I think that's just a good thing to fall back on and remind yourself on so you don't end up punting or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, it can lead to spots where you're able to just make a huge exploitative fold where it's like, if you have queen jack suited and it's a jack high board and they bet huge and then huge again, it's like, okay, it's like queens plus or ace jack. Like it can allow you to get away from spots where like the mistakes can compound, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super important and super prevalent. And we pocket fours have a special place on this podcast because
hence the grin. I see.
yeah,
We love the pocket fours.
One thing I've learned from Max is that pocket fours flop the most sets.
It's math.
What? It's fours? I thought it was eights.
I've heard both.
It used to be eights. That's been done.
Eights.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Pre-COVID eights, post-COVID fours.
For me, early in my career, it was like queens and tens, which was really useful. But
those sets aren't nearly as useful. It's harder for your opponents to have top pair.
That's a good point.
Boom. Yeah.
I guess but those are hands that you're sometimes already all in with, and you might be behind, and then
that's a fair point. Yeah.
So the suck out equity, yeah,
yeah, all in pre with queens and tens making most sets sounds ideal.
So, Chance, you gave us a handed breakdown. I would love to get into that and just kind of discuss everything about it, honestly. So, Wes, you want to go ahead and start it off?
Yeah. So it's in a 5K 3 million guaranteed. And we have, as the hero, we have ace queen open to 500. I'm guessing blinds are 1-200 here.
Is this a WPT or what is this?
It's the non-WPT, the one that just happened last week.
Okay.
And then so fish on the button 3 bets to 1,200 off 16K.
Yeah, a fish calls and then a fish 3 bets.
Oh yeah. Sorry. So a fish calls and then a fish 3 bets button. So that's a very small 3 bet.
Yeah.
That's 2.4x even without the call in the middle. That's very small.
So like I texted a little too much, so I'm gonna finish for you. And like your opponent is really tilted, just lost a big pot, and now he's like down to 16K, so 80 big blinds here. And the question that I would poise here, or like ask people, is what's going to be the optimal decision to continue? And there's multiple elements of this. First, like, have you seen this small 3 bet before? If the answer is yes, then typically then it's kind of likely, did you see a big hand? Did he just seem weak? Was it this bet size relative to strength type of thing? Well, if I've seen like one small 3 bet and then one big 3 bet and the guy ended up having like ace king or aces or something like that, then you can just assume immediately that this smaller 3 bet is likely to be weak. And then coupled with the fact that he's very tilted and just lost to 80K all in pot, well, yeah, I am comfortable stacking off here. And the question becomes, is the equity of 3 betting and being right some percentage of the time greater than the equity of 4 betting and getting all in behind occasionally? And it's like, okay, well, when we 4 bet and get all in, we're getting in basically 16K with about 30% equity. We'll just say 25% equity, which means when we get all in with 25% equity, we're losing effectively 50% of what we get in. Versus the EV of 4 betting a size and getting called by worse and continuing to play the hand. And so I believe that it's significantly better to go for a 4-bet here. One, because if you call, you're going to be first to act 3 ways when the other fish calls behind. You're offsuit. You're going to have a lot of trouble just like getting all in. And getting all in comfortably. If it comes queen high or ace high, are you really going to be super comfortable? The other player could have a set or 2 pair. And so our hand actually really wants to 4-bet in this situation. And I think I have my sizing on this other page.
I think 4K. Okay,
No, I
yeah.
actually made it 4,800 in game, 4x.
Okay.
And the opponent ended up calling. So now we'll just say there's 10K out there, a little bit more. And it comes ace 5-4 with 2 hearts. And I'll ask you guys, what do you think the best decision is? We 4-bet, there's
Yeah.
10K out there. He's got 11-ish left. What's the best way to proceed?
So SPR is like 1.
Yeah.
So I
know what Wes is going to say.
No, I think I know what you think I'm going to say.
I mean, if we
I'm
think
going to
he's
bet like 20%. You think I'm going to say bet 20% or something like that?
You're going to say like, well, solver would bet 15%, but like my exploit against this player type is going to be to bet 25%.
Okay, I was actually going to go in a different direction. I was going to say maybe we check.
That's like, what that was my first inclination as well, and especially because our opponent's tilting.
If this guy has like queen jack, he might just launch it in. Like he'll fold to any bet with queen jack, but he might, if we check, he might just seize the opportunity. And where SPR is 2, or sorry, SPR is 1. So if it goes check check, we can still get it in. If we, there's still, it's still easy to get it in.
I'm listening. I'm just turning on the AC.
Yeah. I don't think we're missing an opportunity to get all the chips in if we decide to check.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the SPR 1 at the flop, I mean, it shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah. If he has an ace here, or if he has a flush draw, the money's going in regardless. So checking gives us the opportunity to get it in against his 0 equity hands.
Yeah. Let's go. Okay. So the way I would describe it is like if you break your opponent's range into low, medium, and high strength hands. High strength is irrelevant because we're high strength and we're going to get all in anyway. It just doesn't even become part of the equation. Medium strength, we can still, like you said, comfortably get all in facing. Like anything with equity is probably just going to like pile or do something anyway. And then at least if he has low value hand, maybe like a Jack 9 of clubs type of thing, he has a chance to either bet or spaz or turn a pair or something along those lines. And so checking, I do think, gives you the highest opportunity to get value from the low, medium, and the high strength. And one of the important aspects is like, how is his low value hand going to play if we bet the flop after 4-betting? It's just going to fold,
which we don't want.
Yeah. And so yeah, I went with check, and our opponent bet like 3K. And we called, and the turn was an offsuit 10. And we check again, and he piles and has king 10 of diamonds, which was
yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
those are our favorite spots.
After 4-betting and check calling, he just was like, "Oh, you have an ace."
Yeah.
Do you feel like opponents level themselves against you because of your reputation?
Maybe. I would say they like improperly adjust, but it's also just because they don't know how to adjust.
Right. I guess that's kind of, that's kind of where I was getting at. And by reputation, I just mean your not how you're perceived to play, but who you are in the poker community.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Like
well,
we might describe it as like big name equity, where like people just play a lot worse against people that are very well known. They give like too much credit for making these like insane bluffs where it's just probably like 90% value, and they play too scared against them pre.
I feel like a lot of big names have that equity though, and it creates an edge for them for sure. You see, I see it on.
We deserve it, man. We've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah,
that's fair.
You also just see it like, if someone, even if it's more of a local scene, if someone's been winning a lot recently, they'll get that within that, whatever that community is,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Quick question on that hand. So in this case, we had a hand that was very much not vulnerable because, we have top pair. There's not really a bad turn card. Let's say we had pocket tens same sizings with everything. We have pocket 10s though, and it comes like 954. Would you view this a bit differently then?
Significantly different.
Yeah.
So the three reasons for betting are, the two that are obvious, to bluff and to value bet. And then the third and often neglected
Equity
element of
denial?
betting, equity denial. Yeah. And so like tens requires equity denial, but like on that exact 954 board that you mentioned, like maybe aces don't require equity denial. So I might check
Yep.
those to let like queen jack and king 10 and shit like that catch up.
Mhm.
But tens does require that equity denial. So I'd probably choose a medium size and try to stack them that way.
Makes
Yeah.
complete sense. All right. Well, Chance, so we did tell, our listeners that we were going to have you on. So just to generate some questions to ask you. And if you wouldn't mind, we're just going to shoot a couple of them your way here.
All right, let's hear it.
So this one's from Neil in our Discord. And this one Wes and I thought was a great question. So we wanted to start off with it. It's, what's one poker concept you think is misunderstood or underappreciated by intermediate players?
All right, read it one more time.
Yeah, no problem. So what's one poker concept you think is misunderstood or underappreciated by intermediate players? And I mean, you could take any concept you that, comes to mind. I mean, obviously there's a lot, so.
So many.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation like recently with this new guy about like ICM, where he's like a thinking player and like, understands the idea of it. But people are just so flippin' tight under ICM and just like are really misinterpreting it, in my opinion. Because at the end of the day, if you look at how the ICM computers do these outputs, is they run the tournament for 6, 12, 18, 24 more hands, and then the tournament ends. But like in reality, it just isn't considering enough future game. So like in reality, future game lasts a lot longer than that. Or like maybe there's a situation where like doubling up puts you second into chips, but there's this runaway chip leader who's a psycho. So like doubling up doesn't actually help you. So then you're under a lot more ICM pressure. And the opposite of that would be true too, is when there's a runaway chip leader who's just super tight and playing their cards. Well, then doubling up into second allows you to be the bully at the final table. So it matters so much more. And so like I think people play way too tight on bubbles where they're not 3-bet shoving on the guy who's raising any two and shit like that. I was playing this mystery bounty online recently, and like a min cash was like $500 in a $600 tournament, and the bounty prize pool was half the prize pool, and someone was opening every hand. We're on the stone bubble, and like 11 pay, so there's no guarantee we're going to be getting into the money like that quickly. And I was shoving on the chip leader with like 9-7 suited and stuff like that because you're just making so many chips, plus the future equity of being able to win bounties was super important. When like an average bounty at that point, when you get in the money, was worth like 4,000, but then the min cash was only worth 400. So if you're not even giving yourself an opportunity to win a bounty because you're trying to lock up $400 or $500, it's just illogical, right? And so that's one of the biggest things, is just having a mental understanding of future game and of trying to apply it to your ICM. Like I would think of ICM as like a logical breakdown of pay jumps and future equity coupled with your opponent's bust frequency. And obviously it is super complicated, but general population, pros and amateurs alike, are just way over adjusting for that min cash right now, and it's a big mistake.
Yeah. Max and I just made an episode about, are you always short on the bubble? Here's why. And I also know that in people I've coached a little bit in the past, I've talked about this, where it's like, if you find yourself in that 12 to 15 big blind range near the bubble and like this big stack keeps opening, first off, he's going to be wide. He doesn't want to call you off wide though. And like, if you 3-bet shove, his advantage over you is in getting you to fold on future streets or just pre-flop. And it's like, if you just think of it that way, where if you 3-bet shove, now this advantage, you can't fold anymore. Like, what's he going to do? He has to just have the hand, which is going to be much rarer than in a normal spot. Yeah. So yeah, finding those spots where you're using the big stacks leverage to kind of as leverage over them is, one way of going about it. And then, yeah, like you said, the future game stuff of, maybe if you have 2 big blinds, you just kind of have to lock up the min cash, but if you have
Yeah.
20, suddenly if you double, now you have 4, like, doubling up is so much more
That's
valuable.
exactly what we've discussed. It's like the value of getting the double. Like, like you said, it's perfect at 5 big blinds. The value of you doubling to 10 isn't going to be the same as if you're 20 doubling up to 40 because the future game.
Yeah, exactly.
Second question, actually, by Neil as well. What traits separate, and this is actually a great question for you, Chance. What traits separate students who break through to the next level from those who stall out?
Pattern recognition, innate math ability, work ethic.
Okay. 3 simple answers. Yeah. How important is pattern recognition in poker? I mean, I feel like it's hard to, I guess, say how important it is, but how do you, the best players in the world, are they better at pattern recognition or at studying solvers?
The best players playing high rollers, or the best players with the highest ROI in
I would say,
WSPT or
let's say
WPT?
that. Let's say that. Yeah. Ignore the high rollers.
If you ignore the high rollers, I think it's certainly pattern recognition.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. And then I guess that makes sense. And then high rollers where people are going to be more studied on the solvers.
Yeah, like take his name's Josh Riker, right? Is that
Yep.
am I saying the name right? Yeah. Okay, I don't know how much he's. I actually do know how much and who he's studied with. But if you take the exploits that he's adding to poker, it's based on pattern recognition. And I don't want to give away what his exploits are. It's not fair to him, right? But he's in these WPTs and stuff like it, and he's saying, okay, because of how the population plays these spots, I get away with doing X, Y, and Z. And so he's giving himself significantly more plus EV opportunities, plus expected value for the listeners who don't know, or a positive expected value. And he's giving himself more opportunities that are plus EV. And the more opportunities that you grant yourself that are plus EV, the more you get paid with your value hands. The more it's like a snowballing effect of the EV that you get to accumulate. And it's like if someone's just a nit and they check raise on ace 7 deuce from the big blind, and I have ace king, I'm like, fuck, I should probably just fold now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, but I'll fold the turn, right? But then if I'm playing a hand versus like Boxen or myself, and I get check raised on that board, I'm like, sweet. And on the turn, I'm like, I'm always calling. And then on the river, it's like maybe I'll consider folding now. So you take like a nit who has a set against top pair, and they're getting a flop check raise, and then probably not a turn bet. And you take like a myself or an Alex Foxen or a Josh Riker, right? Like someone who's like really good at being aggressive, and they're making a set against top pair, and they're always getting the flop check raise, they're always getting the turn bet, and then half the time or more, they're getting called on the river shove. So the amount of EV that they're extrapolating, like it just extrapolates in every single spot from the game. So the more you're able to find these spots to be aggressive that are good plus EV decisions to accumulate or to be in there, the more the top end of your value gets paid.
That makes complete sense, and Josh is an absolute artist at that for sure. I mean, people see him as a complete blaster, and when he gets when he makes a hand, he's getting paid. So it's as simple as that. And this next question is from someone you've coached with a little bit. He's the winner of the $1 million WSOP Mystery Millions, Mr. Mike Wilklow.
Fellow chip leader AI member.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And so he goes by Mike Puddinhead on our Discord, but he says, in Hold'em, what street do you think intermediate players have the biggest leaks and should focus on studying? Pre-flop, flop, turn, or river?
Intermediates?
Yeah.
Turn.
Yeah. I feel like that's when things kind of start, people see a lot more flops, or people see a lot more, obviously pre-flop, they're going to see all the hands. Flops, they're going to see a lot more flops, but they don't see as many turns and rivers. And I think
think of it from like the betting side of the coin, right? They raise pre, they see bet, and then they're on the turn and they're like, oh, what do I do?
In no man land,
the other side of it's true too. They defend the big blind correctly. The flop, they're like, okay, I know I should call and check raise and like do these things with these hands. Then like they either check call and face another bet and they're like, what do I do? Or they check raise and get called and they're like, what do I do? So like, yeah, I would say for the most part, people suck on the turn.
Is chip leader coaching good at helping students on turns?
Yeah, I mean, one of the beautiful aspects of what we created with the chip leader AI is like a pick your path. And so you can go inside, and I'm sure Wes is familiar with this, and you can click on turn, and then there's 32. I'm not sure how many different topic clusters on the turn where it's like double barreling, facing double barrels, facing check back on the flop, check raising, facing check raise, right? So there's all of these different things where there's 20 to 40 different hand histories in it just on that topic of check raising or facing check raises.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, maybe not even, well, I guess I will get specific because Max and I have talked about this specific like exploit on the podcast before. So I'm not giving anything else away. But one thing that I have noticed, and I think a lot of people have noticed, is like, let's say we raise pre-flop, we see bet flop, we bet turn. I feel like a lot of players tend to overfold the turn. And then so if they get to the river, they're going to do so with a stronger than average part of what their range should look like. And so a lot of times then it's like maybe we don't bluff the river so much, but we just if we feel like we're against that type of player, we hammer the turn and then only bluff the river if there's a lot of like clear auto folds, like tons of missed draws and whatnot. So
Yeah, and it's it always operates on this continuum where like the EV of your turn bluff goes up significantly because they're overfolding turn. But then if they're overfolding turn, the hand classes that land on the river become way too strong and too heavy in top pairs, which we all know trying to make people fold top pairs is probably a bad idea. Therefore, the EV of bluffing river goes way down. Well, again, back to the continuum. If the EV of bluffing a street goes way down, the EV of value betting that street goes way up.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions here before we start to wrap up, Chance. This one's actually from one of my favorite Discord members. His name is John Coffin. He's always in there. And if you haven't joined our Discord yet, hop in there. John is always giving strategy to people who ask questions. Definitely one of the best members in there to get advice from. And he asked this question: how much do you value seeing showdown before making exploit plays versus villains? And to put another way, are you willing to make big exploits often without having seen evidence first and operating just on tells not yet substantiated?
Guilty as charged. One of my leaks is taking like a default tell too far too early. One of the things I practice in my performance goals would be to try to see proof or solidify first. But then back to the first question about like seeing hands. It would depend how far outside of a baseline the hand we saw is. So like let me give you a more specific example where if someone called an open on the button with 7 deuce off, well then we can probably assume that they're going to be calling the button way too wide. And so we can squeeze way more, defend more profitably. Basically, our response to that would be significant. And so, but if they're supposed to be flatting like 5-4 suited and they flatted 6-4 suited, well, that's not that far outside of the box. So our adjustment can't be that extreme. If they're starting to add the offsuit combos, well, there's like 16 combos of ace king or 5-6 suited or whatever, or 5-6, right? 4 of them are suited, 12 of them are offsuit. So when you notice your opponent starting to add offsuit combos, it means the range composition starts to include a lot more stuff than it normally would. And so you're able to make deeper exploits. And so that's why I mentioned the further outside of the norm. And that's why you asked before, like, how important is it to know GTO or like have a good baseline? Like, yeah, it matters. Because that's how you know to exploit is like, this guy's way too wide here. So I'm going to squeeze significantly more often. And it's like, I think that there's a chance because of a tell the opener's weak, and then this guy who flats way too much called the button. I'm just going to squeeze everything from the blinds. So like that's how you kind of want to put it all together.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Wes actually has brought that up many times where it's like having that GTO or that fundamental theory will help you find those exploits, kind of like what you were saying. And then one last question here from our listeners. This one comes from Alan Baker. This is a quality question for you. He says, "Are nasal strips the plus EV I've been looking for to get me to that next level?"
So I actually got a sinus surgery like 4 months ago called a septoplasty. It's like kind of like a deviated septum. And the recover, like I still have a little bit of inflammation, so I don't breathe perfectly. But like in general, the nasal strips I think are so overpowered for two reasons. One, the small reason is that it just gives you like more oxygen. But I think what's more overpowered is the fact that it promotes more mindfulness and more like being in the moment, more presence, that allows you to put, like, if I think of us as like a computer that has a finite amount of RAM, and I think the nasal strips actually help you put as much of that RAM being mindful and present onto one decision at a time.
Wow, I completely agree with you too. I mean, obviously, oxygen is a key component to brain function, and also, if you ever do meditation or anything like that, it's always focus on your breathing, so that will help you enter that state.
Yeah, I got a
Um,
meditation bench and pillow somewhere in here that I should probably break back out. Mhm.
Say that one more time. Sorry.
I have like a meditation bench and pillow from my like
Oh,
mindfulness days with Tommy Angelo back in the day when I
do you
first got
still
into
do you still do any sort of meditation regularly or not really?
it. Yeah, I mean, I do focus on my breathing, but as far as like getting on the bench and pillow, not so much.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's always important to take a little bit of time to just reset. And I think that some breathing exercises are a great way to do that, specifically if you're on break of a tournament or something like that, to help you reset or to figure out where, yeah, just to reset the brain, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Chance, thanks again for taking the time
You
to
know,
answer. Sorry.
Max, maybe just like another just kind of open-ended question here. I know a lot of our listeners are looking to improve their games. I obviously use chip leader coaching. What would you say? I guess a bit of an open-ended question, but how would you say, chip leader coaching? What would you say someone who's not like a professional poker player, but someone just looking to spend a few hours a week, improving their game? How do how would you go about that? Or maybe if you were coaching someone one-on-one, how would you go about diving into that?
Well, I do one-on-ones, but
Yeah.
in general, I think that studying a little bit each week is really important. Like
Mhm.
keeping part of your mental RAM on this game. Like I used to literally dream about poker and wake up and like call my friend and ask him about hands I'd play when I'd sleep. But
Yeah.
nowadays, like I think chip leader coaching, if you want to get better at tournaments specifically, it's just not even close. Like I think what we have is the best. Like myself and Alex and Chrissy Boxon are just, at the top of the game in that area. And we don't hold anything back. So like I think chip leader AI is like I said, our cheapest product, but it's still a pretty fantastic tool and has a
Mhm.
video archive with it. Then we have our two standalone products where you pay once and you have them for life, which is Bracelet Hunter and the Closer. Both are phenomenal and have tons of content inside. And we actually just launched a new offering with just the three of us called Inner Circle.
Yep.
And myself, Alex, and or Chrissy jump on weekly, and we do one or two group coaching calls every single week. It has its own content library called the Vault. It has the Bracelet Hunter Boot Camp, a private Slack channel that the three of us are all super active in, and we actually have open enrollment for it right now until the end of the month.
Well, you guys can
Right.
find a link in our description to go ahead and if you're interested in that to sign up for that. And yeah, again, thank you so much, Chance, for doing that. We have one last question we ask every guest we have on here, and it's a very open-ended question: is poker an art or a science?
I think it's both. Like I think in order to understand the game, it's science. But I think in order to truly be great and truly enjoy the game, it's an art.
Mhm.
It's as simple as that. I love that answer. Yeah, thank you again for taking the time to be with us today and to let all the listeners get a piece of your mind, especially on the hand breakdown and everything we've had to discuss. Any last thoughts you wanted to discuss, whether it be about chip leader coaching or the future of Chance Kornuth, anything?
Not really, but other than the stuff I just mentioned about chip leader coaching, and I do think that if anyone's really wants to get better, our current inner circle offering is the best opportunity there is.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Wes, any last thoughts from you?
We should probably do our plugs, shouldn't we?
Yeah, no, for sure. And these are very simple, guys. If you're interested in joining to our Discord, And again, you're going to find a link in the description for all this stuff. But the Discord is a great place for people to learn, and it's free. So if you want to hop in there and chat and meet people who are like-minded and have passion for poker, make sure to hop in there. If you are interested in playing a meetup game with us every other Tuesday on Clubs Poker, it's an online site. You can sign up using the link in the description to help support the podcast. Get in there and punt with Wes and I. You know we'll punt. That's for sure. We also have merch if you guys are interested. Suited Kings did team up with Tilted Compass. Yeah, if you're watching the video, Wes is wearing it right now. We have some awesome hoodies, shirts, all the good stuff. So if you want to rock some sweet apparel at your next tournament, or whether you're playing online or just wherever you're at, make sure to check out that. Wes, anything I'm forgetting? Oh, Patreon as well.
Patreon. And I mean, there's one more too now. There's one more.
What is that?
Follow me on Twitch. I'm doing
That's right.
Still doing my 10K to 100K bankroll challenge.
Where are you at?
If it 44 something. The last
he's doing well, and he's actually following strict constraints, bankroll management to kind of show people, and he's put in hundreds of hours already, grinding.
Yeah, this last week was good though. All I had to do was basically two things: one, play more cash, and two, just completely eliminate ACR. And I had a 15K. 15K over 6 sessions. So it was.
You're almost halfway there, man. I'm definitely rooting you on. If you guys are interested in improving your game, Chip Leader Coaching is a great spot. Watching Wes play on Twitch is a great spot. He answers questions in chat and all that good stuff. So thanks for taking the time to listen today. We love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Suited Kings podcast.